I draw comparisons between the NFL and the NBA all the time on this channel. The leagues do have some similarities, but there are also some stark differences. For example, the players have all the power in the NBA. Teams and coaches in the NBA are at the mercy of their superstar players. Who do you think is running the show in Los Angeles right now? Is it Frank Vogel? Jenny Buss? Or is it LeBron James? I think the answer is obvious. Frank Vogel, if he leaves the Lakers tomorrow, they're still winning 50-plus games next season. Now, LeBron James leaves the Lakers, they turn into the New Orleans Pelicans during the Anthony Davis era overnight. It is the exact opposite in the NFL. The owners have all the power. And if you're an elite level head coach, they have the power. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. Who's calling the shots in New England? Wasn't Tom Brady. We saw that this offseason. It was Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick had been ready to move on from Tom Brady for the past couple of years. He finally got his wish this offseason. Now, they made it look good in the public, made it look like Tom Brady made the decision on his own to leave New England and finish his career in Tampa. But the truth is, the Patriots had been ready to move on from Tom Brady. If you want any further proof that the players have little to no power in the NFL, the situation with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys proves that point. For a year now, they have been going back and forth over the details of this contract. I remember several months ago we were hearing reports that Dak Prescott had all the leverage in his situation with Dallas. He's got the Cowboys bent over a barrel. You know, Dak Prescott might have had the leverage at one point, but any leverage that he had was only temporary. At the end of the day, Jerry Jones holds all the cards in Dallas. He has all the power. The fucking collective bargaining agreement is structured to give the teams the power when they're negotiating and dealing with players. Listen, the Cowboys aren't the side in this situation with the pressure on them. All of the pressure is on Dak Prescott. Dallas went out and signed Andy Dalton. They've got a plan B to fall back on if Dak decided not to get his shit together. Now, it was reported Monday night that Dak had actually signed the franchise tag with Dallas. Now, this leak of information got many clueless Cowboys fans all excited on Twitter, thinking that Dak and the Cowboys had signed a long-term agreement. No, that's not the case. Dak is only guaranteed to play in Dallas through 2020. Now, was it a good idea for Dak to sign the franchise tag? That really depends on how you look at it and how you look at the situation. Just like anything else, there are pros and cons, positives and negatives. I'm going to give you my opinion on it in just a second. But first, I'm going to look at some of the positives of Dak signing the franchise tag. But first of all, it alleviates a little bit of the pressure going into training camp. Not much, but just a little bit. They still got July 15th to sign a long-term deal. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point. Neither side is budging on the length of the contract. Neither side has changed their stance in months, really. Dak wants 4 years, Cowboys want 5. That hasn't changed. But Dak signing the tag gives everyone a temporary sigh of relief in Dallas. We all know that he's going to be on the practice field when training camp starts. In most cases, I'm supportive of a player when they hold out of camp due to a contract situation. I'm usually all about the players getting their money. When it comes to a quarterback holding out, though, I feel like it's a terrible idea. If Ezekiel Elliott holds out of training camp, who really fucking cares? I mean, running back, it's pretty much a plug-and-play position. You get the ball, you go. Quarterback is a different story. You're running the entire offense. You got to know the playbook. You got to develop chemistry and timing with your receivers. Plus, Dak Prescott has Mike McCarthy now. He's got a new head coach in Dallas. So if he missed training camp, he'd essentially be going into this season blind. Signing the tag also pretty much guarantees that Dak will be in Dallas through 2021. Pretty much guarantees. It's not 100% guaranteed. He's going to make over $31 million this season, the most money he has made his entire career. If they can't get a long-term deal done next offseason, and let's be honest, that seems unlikely to happen, then Dak will make about $38 million in 2021 if the Cowboys decide to franchise tag him again. Now, Dak signing the tag also takes away the Cowboys' power to rescind the offer in the first place. They could have used that $31 million to go out and sign Jadeveon Clowney, or trade for a Jamal Adams, or even maybe go get Cam Newton. Like I said a second ago, though, they already have their plan B with Andy Dalton. Signing Andy Dalton took away a lot of the leverage that Dak had. Because before that, Dallas didn't have another quarterback on this roster that could step up and start. So Dak took a little bit of the power away from Jerry Jones. Also guaranteed himself $31 million this season. But to me, the negatives in signing the franchise tag far outweigh the positives. For most of these negotiations that have been going on for a year or so, Dak really did have the Cowboys pushed against a wall. That's one reason he felt that he didn't have to bend on the length of the contract. He knew that he was the Cowboys' only option at quarterback. Now that he signed the franchise tag, with the addition of Andy Dalton also, the pressure now goes off of the shoulders of Jerry Jones and the Cowboys and squarely onto the shoulders of Dak Prescott. There's not any pressure on the Cowboys now to get a deal done. We're going to see July 15th come and go, and no contract is going to be signed. Honestly, I feel like the Cowboys got exactly what they wanted with this situation. I've said it many times before. The length of the contract is really a moot point from the Cowboys' perspective because Dak's never going to see the final year of the contract anyway. If he played well, then the Cowboys would extend him before the contract ended. And if he sucked, once the guaranteed money was paid out, Dallas would either cut him or trade him. So the fifth year is meaningless from the Cowboys' perspective. There are still some questions, I think, in Dallas surrounding Dak Prescott and whether or not he really is the long-term answer at quarterback. The Cowboys, now they have one more season to evaluate him before committing to him long-term. All of the pressure is on Dak Prescott. He is essentially playing in a contract year in 2020. I don't give a shit if Dak throws for 10,000 yards this season. If Dallas doesn't make the playoffs, then his future is looking bleak. At least in terms of making $35, $38, $40 million a year, which is exactly what he wants. 8-8, that's not going to get it done. Being one and done in the playoffs, not going to get it done. I think the Cowboys want to see a deep playoff run out of Dak Prescott this season. The Cowboys have a strong roster. I mean, it's fair for them to expect that. They play in the worst division in the NFL. Just look at some of the other quarterbacks in the NFC East. You got Carson Wentz. Stays hurt. He's inconsistent at times. Dwayne Haskins. No need really even to comment on Dwayne Haskins. Then you've got Daniel Jones in New York. But he's still developing. Dak Prescott has no excuse not to win this division. And he is going to be under immense pressure this season to do so. Because now the excuse of Jason Garrett is gone. There's no more blaming Jason Garrett this year. You've got a real head coach in Mike McCarthy. So if the Cowboys are failing like they did last year, all of the blame is going to go on Dak Prescott. I understand his hesitation in wanting to sign a 5-year deal, which is the offer that Dallas has on the table. When you look at it from Dak Prescott's perspective, it makes sense not to want to sign on a 5-year contract. Because a 5-year contract is really a 6-year or a 7-year contract. The Cowboys could franchise tag him at the end of the deal for 1 and 2 years, just like they're doing now. He would be 34 years old at the end of a 5-year deal. Once you add on the potential 2 franchise tags, Dak's looking at being 36, maybe even 37 years old once he gets to negotiate a new contract. Which means his prime earning years in the NFL will be gone. So it makes sense from that perspective. Unfortunately for Dak Prescott, right now is the worst time to be in the situation that he's in. I feel like he is making a monumental mistake not signing this 5-year contract that the Cowboys are offering. One reason that Dallas would prefer a long-term deal right now is because they can spread out that salary across multiple years, kind of like what the Saints have been doing with Drew Brees for the past 3 or 4 years. The Cowboys are staring down a potential scary cap situation right now. They've got Ezekiel Elliott on a big money deal. Amari Cooper, one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. And now you got to pay Dak Prescott. But they're franchise tagging him. So that entire lump sum goes against the cap. No one knows what the salary cap is going to look like in 2021. If fans aren't allowed in attendance, the Cowboys are looking at losing over $600 million in revenue. So let's assume for a second that the salary cap in 2021 stays the same. And that's a real positive outlook, because if all 32 teams lose their stadium revenue from fans not being in attendance, the cap is likely to drop. But let's just assume that it remains at $198 million. Let's say that Dak Prescott gets tagged again in 2021. Him and the Cowboys can't come to an agreement on a long-term deal next offseason. They tag him again. He's making $37, $38 million on the franchise tag. Between Dak, Zeke, and Amari Cooper, the Cowboys would have 3 players eating up nearly 40% of their salary cap. That is a terrible situation for the Cowboys to be in. That's why Dallas wants a long-term deal, or would prefer a long-term deal. That's also why I say it's a huge mistake for Dak to pass on the long-term offer from the Cowboys. He is taking a huge risk. Why not take the $110 million in guaranteed money? Because there are no guarantees right now with this pandemic going on. If he signs that deal, he's guaranteed that $110 million, whether COVID impacts things or not. Instead, he seems to be willing to take the risk. Dak Prescott is really risking on himself. He is betting on himself. And you got to respect him for it, but it's still a risky proposition, and it is the wrong decision to make. What do you think would happen if Dak has a down year in 2020? Or, let's just say, he has a season like he did last year, but the Cowboys missed the playoffs. What do you think's going to happen? Maybe the Cowboys decide to move on from him. Hey, we got a cheap quarterback in Andy Dalton. We'll just go with him and save the $38 million we'd have to pay Dak Prescott. Then Dak would enter free agency in potentially the worst free agent market in the history of the NFL, because a lot of teams could be strapped for cash. I mean, you're talking about the Cowboys losing $600 million in revenue alone if fans aren't allowed in attendance. So NFL teams across the board could be in bad financial situations. The salary cap could drop. So Dak wouldn't even be looking at making $35, $38 million. Who knows what he could be making with a drop in the salary cap? To me, Dak signing the franchise tag is a win-win for the Cowboys, while he's putting all the risk and all the pressure on himself. Dallas, they get another year to evaluate him, like I said earlier. They enter this season as playoff contenders. They are paying Dak Prescott less money than they would be paying him on the contract that they offered him. Plus, they can now rescind that original contract offer and decide, hey, you know what? We couldn't come to an agreement. We'll just wait till next offseason and we'll negotiate then. All the while, Dak enters the 2020 season with no guaranteed money for the future. He enters the season having to prove himself again. Even if he does have a great season, the Cowboys, if they want, they can stop him from hitting free agency by franchise tagging him again. Like I said at the start of the video, the Cowboys have all the power. The teams in the NFL have all the power. If Dak did hit free agency, even in a normal free agent market, I believe he would be disappointed. He has overvalued himself in these negotiations with the Cowboys. The offer Dallas has on the table that pays him $35, $38 million a year, 5-year length, is the best he's going to get, because he's not a top-level quarterback. I know Dak thinks that he's a top-level quarterback, but the rest of us aren't believers. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button for me. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Thank you guys that have already done so. I appreciate the support. Leave me a comment in the section below. Do you feel like Dak Prescott made a mistake signing the franchise tag instead of the long-term contract? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you have any questions, you can email them to BTLKC84@gmail.com. I will see you guys next time.